Sigma versus Sony. One of the primary reasons why I switched to Sony cameras was the vast selection of incredible lenses that are available for the E-mount. There's no other camera maker that offers anything even remotely close. Like most people who first buy into the Sony ecosystem, I started off with an inexpensive 28-70 kit lens, but I quickly added three other lenses: the 24-105 f4, the 20 f1.8 G lens, and the 35mm 1.4 GM. A few months ago, I happened to walk into my local camera store and they had a 14-24 Sigma lens in the used section for $850. Now, I needed a wide angle zoom lens for my real estate business, and at that price, I really couldn't resist. That, my friends, is when my love affair with these Sigma lenses began. Now, in this video, we will compare various Sony and Sigma lenses as best we can at the various focal lengths, and perhaps it will help you decide which option is best for you in your use case. Now, this is all highly subjective. We're not going to do any test charts on this channel. We're going to leave that to the professionals. So feel free to agree or disagree in the comment section down below. Now, full disclosure, I have purchased all of these lenses with my own money and am not sponsored in any way, shape, or form by either of these brands. But Sigma, if you are watching, and I sincerely hope you are, I'd be happy to chat. Anyways, let's get into it. I want to start first with build quality. Now, both are excellent, so this one's really a toss-up. Sigma's contemporary line is similar to Sony's G line, built mostly from high-quality plastics. However, the Sigma contemporary zoom lenses operate much smoother than the comparable Sony lenses. The Sigma Art series is absolutely on par with the Sony GM lenses in terms of build quality, and I would argue, controversially, that they're actually a bit better. They're built mostly from metal, they feel ultra premium, but they're not nearly as heavy as you would expect. The GM lenses are a nice combination of plastic and metal, very well built and nicely weighted, so no complaints there. Lastly, and this isn't something that I see a lot of people talk about, but all the Sigma lenses are still made in Japan. Every single Sigma lens feels like it has been expertly crafted and just oozes quality, regardless of the price point, as opposed to the Sony lenses that feel just a bit meh. Having shot Fuji for 6 years prior to Sony, I truly appreciate the quality workmanship. All right, next up, I'm going to lump autofocus and stabilization together in the same category. All right, let's get this out of the way right up front. Yes, Sony lenses perform better for both autofocus and stabilization. But how much better? And does it even matter? These Sony cameras have gotten so good that the end result are simply indistinguishable. Take the A7R5, for example. The autofocus is absolutely insane with all kinds of AI going on in the background, and the stabilization is rated up to 8 stops with certain lenses. Now, the active stabilization works really well for both Sony and Sigma lenses. I keep hearing this false narrative that you need to use Sony lenses to process the footage through Catalyst Browse. That's simply not accurate. I use it all the time with footage shot with my Sigma lenses. If I understand it correctly, the gyroscopic data that is stored is from the camera body movement, not the lens. If that's not accurate, please let me know down in the comments below. And listen, while you're down there, why don't you go ahead and click the like button, maybe hit subscribe. It really helps out the channel, and it lets me know that this is the type of content that people enjoy viewing. Thanks for that. All right, this is where it gets real interesting. The quality of the end result. Now, I legit thought I was losing my mind when I would bring my S-Log3 footage that I had shot with my Sigma lenses into DaVinci Resolve, and the color and contrast just looked better. It was easier to grade compared to the Sony footage. Honestly, that is what inspired me to make this video in the first place. Not only do Sigma lenses have better color and contrast, but they also have a more pleasing fall off and, dare I say, better bokeh. Again, this is highly subjective, so feel free to disagree down in the comments. All right, now it's time for the fun part. We're actually going to look at some footage that I shot with both the Sony and the Sigma lenses. All of this footage was shot at the exact same time, not the exact same time, but right around the same time, within 30 minutes of one another. And it was shot using the exact same settings. So I think the shutter speed was right around 1/640th of a second. ISO 800, which is the base ISO for S-Log3 in the A7R5. And I shot it at f5.6 because that's the largest aperture for one of the lenses that I'm comparing in this particular test. I have applied a color grade. I used the EOS Alpha LUTs from Eric Lens. I'll leave a description down below so you can check that out if you're interested in it. But I've dialed it way back, and it really doesn't matter what LUT you do use, because Again, we're applying it consistently across all of the clips, so it gives us a nice frame of reference. And I think it's important to not just show you the actual log footage, but the end result, which is color graded to your own personal taste. So anyways, let's jump into it and take a look. First up here, we have on the left-hand side, the Sony 20mm G lens 1.8, and on the right-hand side is the the Sigma 16-28 zoomed into 20mm. And you can see these two lenses are actually pretty comparable. I will say that you'll notice on the Sony on the left that the sky is quite a bit bluer, and there is definitely more red/magenta in this image. And I just prefer the colors in the Sigma lens for this particular comparison because it's just a warmer tone. What I talked about in the beginning of the video, it's just more pleasing colors right out of the gate. There's really nothing that I need to do for this particular image other than just put on that LUT and maybe just a couple of tweaks with the exposure itself. All right, next up is the Sony on the left-hand side, the 24-105 at 24, and on the right is the 24 art lens from Sigma. And this one is, I think, a little bit more obvious. The sky, again, on the Sony lens is quite a bit bluer than it is on the Sigma. And in addition to that, you see the reds really popping out in this image compared to the Sigma. I also noticed that the Sigma is quite a bit sharper. Now, this isn't really a fair comparison because this is the Sigma's a prime lens and the 24-105 is a zoom lens, but it's something to note and something that you should consider. But to me, this one, hands down, the Sigma is the clear winner. All right, now this one's interesting. So this is the Sony 28-70 kit lens on the left-hand side and the Sigma 28-70 f2.8 on the right-hand side. And again, you notice that sky is really oversaturated blue on the Sony lens, and it's just very pleasing and much more accurate on the Sigma side. Color swatches, these look pretty decent. Again, I'm not a huge fan of this Sony color rendition for these Sony lenses. I could fix it obviously in post if I really wanted to, but I just much prefer the ease of shooting with these Sigma lenses, popping on a LUT, fixing the exposure, and moving on. Okay, I'm going to pause it here because I want you to get ready for what you're about to see. So on the left-hand side is the Sony 35mm GM lens, and on the right-hand side is the Sigma 28-70. Now, remember in one of the sections I talked about the autofocus and the stabilization, and I said that Sony does perform better in both of those areas. This is an example where you can actually see that the autofocus for the Sony lens does perform quite a bit better than the Sigma lens. It takes a couple of beats for the focus to acquire me in the image. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So just be paying attention to the focus of me as I enter the frame and how quickly it happens with the Sony as opposed to the Sigma. All right, Sony, now I'm in focus. 1, 2, 3, boom. Now I'm in focus on the Sigma. So it took about 3 seconds for that particular lens to do it. Now, in terms of colors, the 35, again, you're seeing this big punch of blue. The reds aren't as pronounced on this lens, but they are there compared to the Sigma lens. And then last up, this one is the most egregious in my opinion. You can notice right off the bat on the left-hand side, you've got the Sony 70-200 GM2 zoomed in at 85mm compared to the Sigma 85 1.4. And look at how pleasing that Sigma image is on the right-hand side. It just looks incredible. And you can see all that red in my face on the Sony side and also in the trees in the background. Take a look at that. You can see that there's just this magenta presenting itself that doesn't even exist. Like in real life, when you look at that scene, you do not see red anywhere. It's really strange. You see some browns, some greens, some yellows, some oranges, but you don't see any reds. So that has been my aha moment with the Sony lenses versus the Sigma lenses, is that Sony really does provide a much cooler image. So you see the blues pop out of the sky a little bit more. And some people may like that. I personally don't, but some people may like that. But in addition to that, you also have this introduction of reds. And myself, I mean, I've got like literally rosacea. So I have like inflammation on the cheeks and I'm just a pasty, pale person. So having the reds amplified really When I'm on camera, I just don't think it looks particularly pleasing. But there may be other situations where that is something that is more desirable. I don't know. All I know is that I prefer to look at the Sigma lenses versus the Sony lenses. Let me know down in the comments below which ones you prefer. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't at least mention the OEM versus third-party concern that some folks have. As far as I can tell, the only feature that Sony has disabled in their cameras for third-party lenses is the breathing compensation, which I didn't even use. Everything else, focus map, focus magnifier, eye detect, focus peaking, active steady shot, clear image zoom, APS-C mode, focus hold button, everything, it's all still available and it works no differently than the Sony lenses. Now, not everything is sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns here in Sigma land. Sigma lenses do have some quirks. For starters, there can be sharp edges where the barrel flares out with certain lenses. For folks with bigger hands like me, you can scrape your knuckle pretty easily and that doesn't feel real great. The other thing to consider is that the zoom lenses turn in the opposite direction to every other zoom lens that you've ever used. I'm not sure why they did that, and it does take a little bit of muscle memory to get used to it, but once it's all sorted out, I actually prefer it for some strange reason. Lastly, let's talk about which brand offers the best overall value. Now, on the surface, it looks like Sigma is the clear winner here based on the initial cost. However, that doesn't tell the whole story. Sony lenses do hold their value a bit better in the resale market, somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 10% better than the Sigma lenses. So if you buy and hold on to your gear for many years, that shouldn't even be part of the equation. But for someone who does trade in their gear more regularly, it is something to pay attention to. But if you are looking at just the price to performance ratio, the Sigma is a clear winner nearly every time. So who wins? Ultimately, as Sony shooters, we are so lucky to have so many great options available for the E-mount. If you prefer a contrasty look with accurate colors straight out of the camera, Sigma lenses offer an incredible value. But if you do plan to tailor the final quote-unquote look in post and want the ultimate in terms of sharpness and overall performance, then Sony lenses may be the better fit. I can't make that decision for you. You've got to figure that out on your own. Either way, they are both fantastic choices. But for me, at least for now, I am Team Sigma. Listen, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure that you smash the like button and also click the subscribe button down below to be notified of future videos. Thanks for watching. Take care.